Welcome back, MTG Joe here. Well, they kind of messed up Wizards, and it was supposed to be the historic qualifier play-in today for best of one, despite all their newsletters, everything like that, saying them correcting on Reddit that it was just a typo, that it would be Pioneer, but it's actually Pioneer today. So wasn't planning on putting out this video today, but we got it anyways. So here are the best decks for Pioneer best of one after the release of Final Fantasy. Not too much has changed. We're gonna take a look at the decks themselves. First off, like in case people ask, there's a number of decks that just have sub 50% in the last week, or like close to 50%. Phoenix isn't doing too well in best of one. The Jund Sacrifice decks aren't doing too well in best of one. Not saying someone can't necessarily spike with it. It's just the decks themselves aren't doing well in terms of the cumulative. So all these deck lists will be in the video description. We'll jump in. We got the data from Untapped, so everything is in the video description if you want to copy paste and try out for the event. I cannot guarantee that the event will not be corrected to historic for next week, but if you want to just farm some gems or whatever, Pioneer is here. So right now the meta is like Leyline Red, Angels, Mono Red Mice, Azorius Control, Esper Greasefang, some Phoenix, Jund, kind of scattered in. If we look, like even in the last week, best of one, we've only had sub 10,000 games, so not a huge amount. This is Diamond and Mythic rank to at least kind of clear out some of the meme-ish style decks. So Leyline Red, highest win rate deck, 77%. So basically leveraging off the Leyline of Resonance like we've had in Standard before the ban. You have Slick Shots, you have the Fling package with Heartfire, Scamp, Infuriate, Monstrous Rage, Titan Strength, Turn Inside Out, just a bunch of pump effects. No Ancestral Anger in this one here, so not really ways to draw cards in this particular variant, but more just kind of outputting as much power as possible as quickly. Very much kill or be killed as quick as possible with this particular version of the deck. The black in the main board here is only for Callous Sellsword. In other versions of the deck in best of three, you get access to Fatal Push, Thoughtseize, stuff like that. Omnixus sometimes in the sideboard. But here it's really just backup plan of Callous Sellsword instead of just casting the Burn Together mode, which is more often than not what you're going to be casting in the deck. Mono Green Devotion, deck you don't see too often in Pioneer anymore, but did knock me out of the last metagame challenge. So there's no Karn because it's banned, but you're trying to high roll Leyline of your own in this deck. Leyline adds 4 Devotion to Nykthos and can allow your random lands to tap. Nykthos itself taps for green then. The core of this deck again is around the Kiora, finding your Nykthos, tapping and tapping it. Trailblazer and Kiora both draw you a bunch of cards. And basically you're trying to set up a point where you accumulate a large board, generate a bunch of mana. You have Uvenwald Oddity that you can transform, and it's like an anthem for your team, giving them a power boost and trample, which is probably the most important keyword. This deck can struggle a bit against aggro if they can get under you, if you can name it, like hit an early elf, but late game, this kind of goes over the top. It's fairly reasonable against the mid-range decks. Like I lost to it while being on mono black mid-range. Their creatures can kind of outpace you, a lot of ETB, and then mono black's got a lot of 1-for-1 removal, where this deck can kind of spew out multiple threats over the course. Azorius combo control. So this is the last time we had a Pioneer one. I qualified with a variation of this. I will preface and say this mana base can likely be improved. Just get rid of the Temple of Enlightenments, play full Hallowed Fountain. I know some folks are commenting they don't like me making changes to these deck lists, but when there's stuff like this that's notable, like Hallowed Fountain is better than Temple, just make that change. That'll improve it. But this deck here is a kind of donate combo deck. So you're playing Azorius Control, and what you want to do is with 9 lives. 9 lives says when this leaves the battlefield, you lose the game. So there's 2 ways to do this. Your opponent either deals you enough damage or enough times instances of damage that you put the 9th counter on 9 lives, which with the trigger on the stack, you would donate it to your opponent with either a flipped Coveted Falcon, or now you have Stiltskin Moogle Merchant as a way to donate it. And then trigger resolves, it's on the opponent's side of the board, they lose the game. You also have like Farewell that can also do that. Sometimes you'll play the 5-mana sweeper that can also hit all enchantments. There's a couple different ways to do that, but that's kind of the core of the deck. I think I still prefer the full Coveted Falcon because you're playing temporary lockdown. So that's kind of a way around there. But the rest of the deck's just a bunch of removal, stuff like that. I think lockdown's very well positioned right now. You can find ways to dig for the combo itself, kind of mixed into there. I would probably also play a White Castle in the mana base just to buy you some extra time if you haven't found the combo. It can block early, give you a couple more instances. Notably, Stomp from Bone Crusher Giant gets around this. So keep that in mind if you're kind of counting damage versus pips in terms of that, because the mono red mice deck does play some number of Bone Crusher Giants. Moving on, we have mono black demons, mono black midrange. So this deck here, Blade of Oni is your honorary demon. I was playing a version with Demon Wall. Blocks better against the aggressive decks, and it can close the game out faster, but early game this can at least pressure against like the slower decks. So it's kind of, I'd say, a meta call. I played a lot of red, which was good, but against like the control deck I was playing against with the demons deck, it was a little too slow to kind of get going because you need to invest 6 mana. You have Annex, that's your card advantage engine. Bunch of discard, bunch of removal scattered in. Murderous Riders, Lilies in here. Invoke Despairs go over the top of the mid-range decks. Aclazotz is your top end along with Shieldred. You have Urborg in here that helps clean up your mana with Mutavaults and Field of Ruins. So that normally it's kind of a downside, but this gives you some utility there. The Mutavaults, there's also the trick where you can animate Mutavault and then have it, so you can tap it for mana, then activate it, and then it counts as a demon. So it's a way to use the Unholy Annex Drain. Moving on, mono red aggro, 65%. It's probably the easiest if you have the standard deck. It's pretty much all standard legal cards with the exception of Bone Crusher Giants, which you might have if you've been playing long enough. It's a staple at the time, as well as Kumano, which is just an uncommon, and Reckless Rage. So Reckless Rage plays pretty cool with Screaming Nemesis. It's another way you can kind of deal damage to Nemesis, then redirect that damage to your opponent, shut off the life gain. Your mouse package in here, and then just some burn to kind of clean it up. You have Mutavault, which is filling the void of Soulstone Sanctuary, which works nicely with the mice as well. It plays with Rockface Village, it plays with Mutavault, so aggressively slanted red deck works really well. A lot of the decks are pretty greedy in terms of mana base. That's why you've seen them, like, it was always Rakdos midrange with Fable, and they've moved to mono black just because they have a hard time against Sunspine Links, dealing a bunch of damage. Esper Greasefang. So this is a hybrid version where you have Oculus as kind of a backup plan. So you're milling yourself or putting cards in your graveyard, Suppliers, Otherworldly Gaze, Picklock, Faithful Mending. You can reanimate with Can't Stay Awake, Recommission, or call a Surprise Witness in here, which is kind of cool. So then you could bring back Parhelion or Sky Sovereign. Parhelion attacks right away, does 13 damage, 2 angels left behind, or you just kind of get the Oculus plan going and beat them down that way there. Sultai Dredge, another graveyard-focused deck. So another deck that's looking to leverage the graveyard. Otherworldly, Stitcher, Bloodghast could come back from the graveyard if you play lands. Cash Grab mills you. Collective Brutality is a way to kind of put cards from your hand into your graveyard through Escalate. And then just flexible removal, discard, light gain and drain. Dredger's Insight gains you life whenever a creature leaves a battlefield. Narcomoeba comes back from your graveyard if it gets milled over. Prized Amalgam comes back if another creature came from your graveyard. Then you have the Silver Smoke Ghoul, which comes back from Creeping Chill, which you can cast for free if you mill it over that way there. So a lot of ways to kind of put cards into your graveyard, mill them, and then kind of go from there, get them back. One of the decks that's good in best of 1, not as good in best of 3 when they put out a Rest in Peace. Rona combo. So this is now got BVs in here, but this is an infinite combo. So if you have Rona, Herald of Invasion, and you use Retraction Helix on it, so it lets you return target permanent to its owner's hand and tap it. So with Rona, you can tap, and it basically, you could return one of the Mox Ambers or Mox Jaspers. It's legendary. So then when you cast it again, it untaps Rona. So you can basically make infinite mana. You play the Mox, tap it for mana. Well, at least in the case of Mox Amber. Mox Jasper won't allow you to create mana because you don't have dragons. But basically you go infinite there. You tap and tap. Just keep casting it over and over and over again. And with VV out, you basically can ping them to death that way there. There's also the line with Valley Flood Caller, so you can cast non-creature spells as though they had flash, and then other otters, in this case here, get +1/1 till end of turn, and you untap them. So this is another way. So this works with any otters. So this is another way with the Rona thing. So you can have Valley Quest Caller tap untap with Retraction Helix. So it basically kind of fills the extra role. Kitsa's another way here that you can tap and tap works. So there's some synergy there. You ping them to death. You can just get like infinite prowess as well with all the counters, and you kind of win from that side. The rest of the deck's kind of just hand selection. You have stock ups to find a combo, sleight of hand, you have some cheap disruption, and then this town, if you have enough mana, you can Seagate Restoration, try to find more pieces to kind of kill them that way. One thing, there's Soulstone Sanctuary here. This should be Mutavault. It's just easier to cast or like to animate, and it counts as an otter as well. You don't want to necessarily spend 4 mana per se when Mutavault does it for 2. And then lastly, Selesnya Angels, good against the aggressive decks, reasonable against mono black. Basically 6 elves, you kind of get ahead on mana, Collected Company or Kylo's Reconstruction, play a bunch of big angels, so Righteous Valkyrie, Bishop Wings gain you a bunch of life, Resplendent Angel makes you pretty wide board, and the goal is just to kind of outpace your opponent with life, make a bunch of angel tokens off like Resplendent, Anthem your team, and just use the evasive creatures to kind of kill your opponent that way there. Looking at the mana base, it's good. Sometimes they play some less than optimal lands, the angel players, but this looks pretty stock in terms of the deck list itself. So that is it. Good luck those playing. Like I said, we'll figure out what's happening in the coming days once we get word, and hopefully they do correct it or put some sort of language around it. But for those Pioneer fans, you get a Pioneer metagame breakdown a little bit ahead of schedule. Thanks for watching.